Hi, welcome to the Human Capital chapter of the Labor Economics course. This is our fourth video and third topic, basically. Basically, with the human capital, we are finishing the labor force part of our curriculum. Labor participation, labor time, and human capital, which is considered as the factor connected to labor productivity, together gives us characteristics of the labor force as much as, of course, we can look to it from the perspective of the mainstream economics. Capital, actually, it can mean different things in different tradition. In Marxian economics, it means completely different thing. In neoclassical economics, and basically it's spread to mainstream economics, so Keynesian economics also practically means the same thing with it. Takes capital as the tools, machinery that are used, accompanied production with to the workers, that increases the productivity of the workers. So in that sense, inputs, for example, if I will use wood for producing furniture, wood is not capital, according to neoclassical definition, again, Marxian definition. But the machine I use to shape wood is capital, so that those tools are capital. Human capital is a concept which is created from maybe this type of machine human framework is recreated to separate the skills and abilities of the people from their pure unskilled bare labor force. That's difficult, actually. Even the most basic sense, any kind of work needs some skills, you might argue. However, as much as possible, we might still assume that we are able to define a basic adult human being with minimum level of skills. In abstract sense, I mean that this has skills that are very much common, even though they might vary. They might be very much common in general population. That's the base labor. Any additional skills is actually considered as human capital. Any additional skills that makes us more productive is considered as human capital. It is difficult, a very difficult concept in my opinion, because kind of it is the human capital when we are thinking of those skills and abilities. They are not always only the skills and abilities that makes us more productive. In some cases, without them, doing certain tasks might be almost impossible, or I don't know, maybe in strict sense it might be possible to do any task without any skill, but in actual world, to do certain tasks, basically you mostly need certain skills. For example, to operate a human being medically, you need certain skills. Without skills, you are not able to make that operation. Even though in theory, I mean, without any medical knowledge, anyone can try that. But even if they try that, I mean, they might try, but I don't know whether with typical manual labor they can do anyone can do difference. I mean, without any medical knowledge, when they operate someone medically, but without any, as I said, knowledge in the background. So human capital might, in some ways, also make it possible for us to do certain type of tasks, at least get us permission to do those certain tasks in modern society. So it is not something that is just make us work faster in the same job, but it also help us to get access to certain jobs. So I have provided two videos, and one video, they are kind of not as heated as, as the other ones. I mean, they are not directly connected to the issues, or they are also not they are also not containing discussions, basically. One of them is actually just an advertisement of a particular school, which is actually teaching its students welding for 2 years. And it's interesting because it makes advertisement of a particular skill, welding. So that's other interesting thing, actually. I mean, human capital, if you think about it, is a skill, additional skill. It consists of separate skills you learn, actually. It is not something that is adding up, like, for example, you put more and more and more coffee. It's not a type of a good that just piles up. It consists of, as I said, different types of abilities. And schools basically try to convince you the ability, the particular skill they teach to you is most useful for you. Most useful for you because even in the cases of depression, there will be demand for that skill. Most useful for you because your skill cannot be replaced by machines, and you cannot also have a, for example, building process or manufacturing process without a certain skill, for example, welding. So those are pretty much the characteristics. There's a skill, and that skill is necessary for a task which cannot be avoided. And without skill, that task is not doable, or at least not realistically doable. In the second case, you see the other approach. I mean, the overall look to the human capital level of a workforce in a country, and what kind of country policies can be done to improve that productivity. And there, in some countries, they look to the general productivity level, for example, improving primary schools. Getting the average workers more productive might be a way to do that. In some countries, there are other finer um, um, adjustments are necessary because they have already developed their general labor, the human capital level, or the education level or skill level of their general labor sufficiently. For example, even if you are able to read or write, this develops your productivity. At least it allows you to coordinate with other people much easily, because you can read now assign instructions, for example, more easily in the system. You don't now the supervisor should not tell to the workers one by one what they should do, basically. And other skills, like, well, they are called basic skills, although I cannot do it. Driving, for example, or use of computer, which is common today, very common today. Those general skills might also, especially in countries where they don't exist, if you develop those skills, they might be useful. But in other cases, if the people are getting specific skills, in that case also you should make sure, more or less, those specific skills people. It would be more efficient if the skills that people get is also useful for them in the labor market. Otherwise, people might get certain skills, but those skills might not be useful for the economic system. So the production level in the economic system, productivity of the workers in the economy, might not increase that much. Of course, there are also health problems. There are also problems of, for example, that's also considered as human capital. The elder population is more numerous than the younger population. That's actually the number of workers in that country might not be increasing that high. I mean, it doesn't specifically. I mean, the fact that number of younger people is less doesn't specifically address the human capital case. Human capital case is, I mean, the productivity of workers, basically, not number of size of the workforce. Okay, let's go down. Well, these parts of the human capital we have already talked a little bit, but basically, in most specific sense, we are talking of a skill when we are talking on the human capital that increases the labor productivity. That's it. I mean, a skill that increases labor productivity. But how do we measure the labor productivity? It is, well, it might look simple in certain jobs where basically manually something is carried. For example, if I carry one chair from a room to another room per hour, if some other person can carry 10 chairs from this room to another room in 10 hours, in that case, that person might be called more productive. Even there, we have some tricks. For example, how do you carry the chair? I mean, you don't need to ideally damage the chair while you are carrying. And if that damage is inevitable, then the amount of damaged chairs have and the time required to carry the chairs might be equally or separately is important. Each have their own importance. I mean, different people might value those properties differently. In a complex job like doctor, for example, this is measuring the productivity is more difficult. Which doctor is more productive? Is it the doctor who treats most patients? Well, how about whether the patients he or she treats are really cured or not? Maybe he just speed up the treatments, but don't actually pay attention much to the patients, so many of them remain sick. Okay, then should we judge the productivity of the doctors by considering how many patients they can cure per patient they look. For example, can they provide a cure the illnesses? I mean, solve the illnesses of their patients. From each 100 patients, can they solve? If they can solve, for example, 80 or 90% of their patients' medical problem, then can we say they are productive? But how about the case when the doctors get more easier cases relative to difficult cases, just to increase that ratio? So it is complex. I mean, measuring labor productivity of a complex job is difficult. And it will become more difficult when we are talking on the labor productivity of different jobs. How can we say a Hollywood star is more productive than, for example, a farm worker? A farm worker spends hours and hours in the hot sun in difficult conditions. Well, Hollywood star may also have difficult working conditions in some cases, especially child actors too. But why is that work much more valuable than the farm work? And if we think about that, actually, farm workers are doing a much more essential things. They provide us food. But maybe what they produce is, I mean, when we are thinking about the overall economic system, the workers that produce the most essential products to us, even if those workers are working very hard, even if those workers are risking their lives, that doesn't mean necessarily they are more productive. So we will talk more on this in the next part.